Hi, Cedric.
Hi,
Um,
Marcus.
and
How
very,
are you
very
doing?
nice to see you today and tonight. And it's night here. It's afternoon for you. You're in Chicago. I'm in Berlin, Germany, and um, it's kind of like we have sort of like this interesting relationship. Let's say, like I think I first met you at a Crimson Project show in
Correct.
2011, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yes, and then and that was in St. Louis,
Yes, that's where I
and
used to live.
yes. And then I didn't see you the next time we came through, or one other time we came through with Stickman,
Right. I was
but uh,
working.
but for some reason we then got in touch after because some of our gear got stolen.
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
See, this is when it's good to have a friend that's a policeman. See, so I can
yes,
start
yeah,
looking at.
yeah.
I
And
was so. I was
you
just about to say, I was so embarrassed behind that. I mean, we had a bad reputation for that for a while, and it was just when I heard it happen to you guys, I just wanted to just crawl through the floor. It was just horrible.
yeah, yeah. But what can you do? It's I don't, and that seems to be like one of the worst things that you can do when you're stealing stuff. You like tools that other people need, right?
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, you can get by, you can, you can get money, but or steal money, but don't steal hammers and
Right.
and,
When
and guitars.
yeah, you're taking somebody's livelihood for crying out loud, and I'm
Yes,
and I,
yeah,
and I really wish I could have caught the guy doing it. Like, what were you planning on doing this? Can you play this stuff? I'm just asking, So somehow I doubt it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, so you are very, very active as a music lover, I would say, and music, I would say, as a journalist, even. Like, I don't know
Yeah,
if you would use that term. And
I'm going to go ahead and do it because journalism was my actual job when I was in the military before I became a policeman,
hmm
and I've been writing actively since high school. And
hmm
I'm in my 50s now, so it's been a couple of days. But yeah, I journalist is good, and I've been called a musicologist, which
hmm
I had trouble getting comfortable with for a while. But I'm kind of there because musicology is not just about the who and the what of music; it's about the why,
yes.
and I like to learn about the why a lot. So I like to think I'm qualified.
Oh, for sure you are. I mean, you have an incredible knowledge about music, and
I
I think,
appreciate that.
I think you do. And you can introduce me to stuff that I've never heard of that is really very special. And you certainly, and this is something that I sometimes I have to remind myself of. I'm a professional musician, which means I really spend a lot of time working within my own
Yes,
world, and I really
yes,
don't have a good overview about what's going on. Then there are people on the other side, like you, people who really know a lot, because you don't have to generate the content yourself. Let's say.
right, right, right. I barely touch my guitars. They're there and they look pretty, but I don't have to play them for a living or anything like that.
Yeah, 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 exactly. And you don't have to produce albums.
Correct. Right.
Yes,
I,
yes,
I just get to review them. That's gonna be much easier, I think.
yeah. So, like, obviously, I think we will talk about music, but your former job um, was you were a policeman, police officer,
Yes.
right?
25 years now, retired.
So let me say something really stupid.
I doubt it.
So, American police officers, I only know them from TV shows.
Right.
Here in Germany, obviously, all I know about what you supposedly do. I know from TV shows,
Coming from a Law
uh,
and Order episode. Yeah.
something like that. Uh, but there's something that maybe you mentioned that in a post on social media, or maybe it's just something that I came up with just right now.
Uh-huh.
I think that probably um, communication is a very, very big part of the job of being a policeman, probably.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was a training officer for my last 5 years. And one of the first things I taught my kids was being able to talk to people is huge. It's everything. It's the ball game. You know,
Mhm.
I'm old and I have bad knees. I don't have time to get engaged in foot pursuits and stuff like that. So I would tell them, like you need to understand, first of all, we're not getting into any foot pursuits. And they'd look all downtrodden. I said, well, that's because I'm going to teach you how to talk to people so that the foot pursuit is never necessary.
Mhm.
We're just going to hash this out right here, and if a guy runs, okay, well, we'll deal with that then. But that's very, very rare if you know how to communicate with people. Communication and empathy. I can't stress empathy enough, and that goes completely around this social sphere that law enforcement is. Everybody needs to be able to empathize with each other, if only for a couple of seconds, because it'll improve your decision making. It'll improve your thought process, but you just got to be willing to slow down and do it, and that's where a lot of the breakdown comes.
Mhm. Mhm. And there seems to be like I spoke with a friend yesterday who was also part of your group on Facebook actually,
Yes.
and he said he was saying something about that the communication in your group is super good and civilized and like very positive, and I'm I'm wondering if that actually has something to do with how you spend 25 years of your
Oh,
life.
I would be lying if I said it didn't, because they're just they're these, and I just had to this morning I had to delete a post that kind of went off the rails, whereas about progressive rock fans. It doesn't matter. It was a silly little meme that I didn't think a whole lot about, but a lot of people kind of got upset about it.
Hmm.
And I looked at it, and here comes that empathy. I looked at it and went, well, it doesn't bother me that much, but I can certainly see where that would annoy you, and it's really not worth keeping here to have that argument going back and forth. That's not what I want.
Hmm.
So ultimately, I direct messaged the guy who posted it and said, hey, take a second and defend yourself, and then I'm gonna pull the post. And he did that. He went on and he said, hey, I was just kidding, and it was just a joke, and he apologized. And okay, you pull the post and you move on. But social, some of these Facebook groups and whatnot have just become so incredibly toxic. I mean, it's just people just talking about what they hate and why they hate. People are on a fan page talking about how much they hate the record of the person whose page they're on. I
Yeah,
mean, why?
yeah.
How about you just not say anything, or
Mm-hmm.
just say, well, this isn't really my cup of tea. I'll wait for the next album. And so that's why I'm pulling out of group after group after group, and I've started my own group because
Hmm.
I can lay down the rules. All right, we're going to be civil here. We're not going to come down on people because we don't like the music that they may like. That's up to them. That's up to you. So yeah, I think I have become kind of an internet traffic cop, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
So I obviously agree with you that like the hate about the album of the artist, which whose page you're on, is sort of bizarre.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's also fascinating how personal some of this, like music or what kind of very strong emotional response music can create
Oh,
in
sure.
people, and
Sure. And,
like
and
like
I'm no different.
yeah, but I guess like mostly we're looking for the positive
Right.
emotion,
And
right?
I think that comes with age and experience. When you're younger, and there's something about the internet that, especially if you can just use a handle instead of your real name, anonymity can breed some ignorance. You,
Hmm.
you feel
Hmm.
like you're safe behind that keyboard, by just saying whatever it is you want to say. And people get passionate. I mean, I'll use King Crimson as an example. The '80s band with Adrian, Robert, Tony, and Bill. That's my favorite band because that's how I was introduced. But I have been, figuratively smacked around by some people who are stuck in the 69 to 74 range, or they just want to hear the original band and whatnot. And you know what? If that's your favorite group, that's fine. I don't care. If you love what the current band is doing, bringing back the old stuff from that era in 8-piece form, that's fine. I don't care. But why would you just stomp on me because it doesn't resonate with me the same way it resonates with you?
Yeah,
I don't understand that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. King Crimson is an interesting organism, let's say, in that regard, because the band went through so many changes, lineup changes,
Right.
and even like styles, and like why would anybody expect that one has to like everything, or you know, like for me, it actually, I have to say, like the 80s Crimson was also my favorite, but then I got to love the John Wetton era, and
Oh, sure.
also
Yeah.
this, and so really, so how does one become a cop in the US? How did
How does
you
one?
become a cop? Yeah.
There's a certain degree of insanity that goes with that to want to do this job. How did I become a cop? People have asked me that, why did you become a policeman? I said, well, when I was growing up, I was the kid that played by the rules. I was the kid that people came to me with their problems. I made the peace. I listened to that, I mediated things. So I figured, what the hell, I may as well get paid for it, but so that's a trifle glib, and equally glib is that we talked about my journalism background, and I wanted to go to work for our major newspaper in St. Louis, the Post-Dispatch, and I got an offer to do some part-time work, but the salary was just terrible.
Hmm.
So I had to look into something that would offer me, a halfway decent salary along with a pension and insurance benefits, which is huge. But as for the process itself, if that's what you're asking me about, you need to be 21 years old, have no criminal record, have a driver's license, that kind of stuff. And you have to undergo a battery of tests, and basically recall exercises and psychological testing and physical fitness. You get through all of that, and you get nominated to go to the academy. You go to the academy, and you're what we call a civilian recruit in training. Now, mind you, this is the St. Louis Police Department. It varies from
Hmm.
department to department.
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
my academy was 16 weeks long, but we were the last 16-week class. The kids I was training were in the academy for almost 7 months,
Hmm.
so they just kind of added to the class work and the workload and what have you. You come out on the street after you graduate, you spend 3 months with me. You're
Hmm.
your wonderful training officer. And if I deem you worthy of being out on the street by yourself, I will sign off on the paperwork after I've done all your evaluations and send you on your merry way. It's not overly difficult.
Hmm.
It's not complex. It doesn't require a whole lot. And one could argue that could be part of the problem too, because I'm planning on writing a book down the road about the challenges of policing. And a couple of people are going to get upset with me when I say this, but I have maintained that policing is one of the last areas where a person with a limited education can hold a position of authority.
Hmm.
And for a
Hmm.
while, okay, no big deal, but the world has become more nuanced. The world has become more socially aware and what have you. And you need to have the empathy and the compassion and the knowledge and the education behind you in order to do your job more effectively. And a lot of the cops out there, some of the cops out there, most of the cops that are on TV doing bad things, let's put it that way, don't have that level of training, or they've chosen to ignore it, and that's part of the problem.
Hmm. Hmm. When you say part of the problem, what is the overarching problem? What do you
The,
say?
wow, the overarching problem is so complex, and it's on so many levels.
Hmm.
The biggest problem is when people are asked a question similar to that, they want to point in one direction. It's
Hmm.
that guy's fault. It's this guy's fault. Well, guys, it's cyclical. Okay, it's not just the police department. It's the society that we're growing up in. It's a dearth of education. It's a dearth of job opportunities. It's a lack of resources out there. It's an economic issue. It's cops who have been raised in one part of my town in a more affluent suburb or what have you, who come to work in some of the roughest ghettos, known to man, and they have no concept of what that's like or what those people are like. You just assume that everybody you're dealing with is a criminal, and that's not the case at all.
No. Hmm.
Um, Hopefully I'm not babbling, but one of the things I was taught in the academy that stuck with me is what we call the 90-10 principle, which means 90% of our time is spent dealing with 10% of the people, which means by and large, everybody's okay, but this element is going to be what keeps us busy. And the same thing applies in the inverse.
Hmm.
Okay. 90% of the problems in law enforcement are committed by 10% of the cops, and I can all but guarantee you that if you go down to our internal affairs division, internal investigations, or whatever it is they may call it in a particular department, there's going to be a file, and you're going to see some of the same names over and over and over again, because that's their MO. That's what they do.
Hmm.
So I don't know that there is no, well, in fact, I know for a fact there is no simple answer to your question, because it's multifaceted. And the first thing everybody has to do is be willing to accept the fact that they are in fact part of the problem. And some people just are not going to do that.
You know, I was hoping you could give me a simple answer.
Sorry.
No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding.
I think my book's going to be about that thick when all said and
Yes.
done. It's
You know, to me, it feels like it's a real privilege to be able to talk to you, and to hopefully get some insight into what you experienced all those years, like over
I
two
appreciate it.
decades.
Yeah.
And I'm very aware of, yeah, I mean, even not being in a position like that, I can imagine the conflicts you
Right.
may be getting into, right? And I also understand if there's just like, if you're just in the slightest not really centered, let's say,
Right.
as you know, as a person in that position, things can go very bad very, very quickly.
Yeah. And
And
those
so there's a lot
conflicts.
of responsibility.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And those conflicts are on multiple levels.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's within the department, trying to do the right thing within the department, even though some of the rules seem ridiculously arbitrary, or for me as an African American, it's a social issue, because once you go out in the street, people will not particularly see you in the most positive way because of what I do for a living, or what I did for a living. As far as they're concerned, I've sold out African Americans by becoming a policeman. And conversely, it's difficult for me to explain to people who've never been in that situation, who've never lived in that culture. It's difficult for me to explain to white officers why black people are thinking the way they're thinking. So, I'm literally caught in the middle. Samuel L. Jackson did a remake of the movie Shaft. Not a great movie, to be certain, but he had a great line, about how he was caught in the middle. He said he's too black for the badge, he's too blue for the brothers. And that's that is precisely where I was, and especially once the Ferguson thing kicked off. That's a northern St. Louis suburb. I wasn't there, but a lot of my friends went up there for the civil unrest and what have you, and that's precisely where I am. I'm standing. It's like watching a tennis match from the net. Just my head's going back and forth, and I'm just stuck there. It's horrible. It really is.
That aspect of the American culture, with the African Americans,
Right.
it's to me, it's really something that I'm coming from Germany. It's not something that I understand. I really have
Right.
to admit. And so that's also why I'm grateful that you're here. Like, for example, I don't see your skin color. I do not
Right.
see it. It's not part of what is important. It's like when you, maybe a stupid example, but like my partner, she has a huge tattoo, right?
Right.
I don't see it anymore. Maybe I saw it like the first few months, right? But
But you adapted to it.
yeah, and it's kind of like the same, like, because I take people for who they are, and it's not about the skin color.
Right.
But I can understand what you're saying, that it must be like really, I'd say you must have been like really torn in some way, right?
There are days, to be certain. Two things: the more, let's put it this way, the more militant leftist side, when somebody says, "Well, I don't see color," well, they say, "Well, that's the highest form of privilege there is, because you don't have to worry about it." And all right, fine, whatever. On the other hand, you've got people who, they see nothing but that,
Yeah.
and they
But
bring.
do you see my skin color when we communicate?
No, I don't care. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't
Yeah.
mean
No,
that in a
no,
mean
just
way.
wondering.
Yeah. Well, I take Martin Luther King's speech to heart. I have a dream where one day my children will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. That's what I'm looking at. So if I'm hanging out with you, if I'm talking to you, if I'm going to one of your concerts, if I'm doing, a podcast with you, it's because I like you on a human level. There are plenty of people who look like me that are jerks, that I want nothing to do with. I try my best not to see that kind of thing. And it's not, and even beyond color, it's a question of politics or ideals. And one of the biggest problems you have out there with many policemen is that they try to enforce their politics rather than the law. And
I see.
That's problematic. Okay. Now, if prime example, and I'm sorry to babble, but this is going to make sense. I went on a call for a disturbance where a woman was incredibly upset that a man was flying a Confederate battle flag on a pole in his front yard. Now I show up, and this is a black woman who called me, and I show up, and she's like, "Oh, I got it made." He's going to see it my way. And she told me what was going on, and the owner of the flag in the house is on the other side of his fence. And I looked at him, and I looked at the flag, and I looked back at her, and I said, "Well, ma'am, there's nothing I can do." And she looked at me like I had 3 heads. What are you talking about? I said, "He's not breaking the law." Okay. Do I find that flag in poor taste? Yes, I do. Do I want to climb up there and rip it down? Yes, I do. And if you want to come with me after work, if we get up there and we tear it down, that's fine. We're going to jail, but we can do that kind of thing. But the First Amendment of the Constitution covers freedom of expression, and he's on his own private property. He can do that. And I mean, the owner of the flag, his eyes got, that big because he couldn't believe what I was saying. I'm like, "Look, I want to punch that guy in the face, but I can't do that. All right. I'm not here to enforce my personal beliefs. I'm here to enforce the law. And the law says he's covered, so, and I had to walk away from it. And she didn't take it well, for the longest, but I had to sit there and explain to her how the Constitution works and whatnot. And she was a bright woman. She was just upset, and I get it. But, those are the kind of things that we have to deal with. I'm not happy to watch people do what they do at protests, but, outside of the standard mayhem and whatnot, they're covered. They can do that kind of thing.
Yeah. And as you say, it's the law versus politics, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
and laws change, things evolve, but I got to work with what I have the day I walk up. I've had plenty of people tell me, I tell them the law, and they say, well, that's stupid. Well, I didn't say it was smart. I said it was the law. And that's all I can do with that.
Yeah. So that means you need the psychological tools, though, to differentiate between your emotional response and the law, right?
Oh, absolutely. And some people, more of the modern cops, more of the kids I trained are a lot better at it. And I think that comes from the education and the willingness to be empathetic, and some of the barriers that, I grew up with aren't as prevalent, with these kids. And that helps. But yeah, you definitely got to have, that kind of mindset. You definitely got to have that kind of psychological background to be willing to slow down and look at the bigger picture, and then come to a resolution that stays within the law, even if it doesn't necessarily jive with your personal beliefs.
Did you get better at that over the years?
Absolutely. And there's always something that's going to eat at you, because I was just as bad. And this is something else people don't understand. Yes, I'm a black man, but I'm a black man who grew up in suburban St. Louis, and I came to work in urban St. Louis. Those are two different things. Okay. I might look like somebody that lives there, but we have completely different backgrounds. So I had to spend time adjusting, to the surroundings where I was working, so I can relate to that person more, because he has no real concept of where I grew up, and where I grew up won't play where he lives. So you have to be willing to make those adjustments. And yeah, it gets easier, but the first thing you have to do is be willing to make the adjustment. There are too many people out there that won't change. This is how I am. This is the way it is. And you can't change my mind. Okay, well, that's not helpful. You got to be willing to adapt.
Can you explain what the major differences were between the suburban part and the urban part?
Suburban in America is usually a little more affluent. Let's call it a higher tax bracket per se. My dad was an insurance agent for 30 plus years. My mom was a teacher. We were not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, but we achieved upper middle class, at some point. So,
Hmm.
if I wanted something and I begged my dad hard enough, ultimately I would probably get it, as opposed to coming from nothing, and in the harder hit urban areas. There are plenty of good neighborhoods in the urban areas too, don't get me wrong, but when you go from where I grew up to essentially the ghetto, where there's a drug dealer every other corner,
Hmm.
where stolen cars are going back and forth, and people are getting robbed and their houses are getting broken into. There's a disconnect if you
Yeah.
didn't grow up in that kind of situation, and then you come down to a situation where that happens all the time. So you have to be willing to make that adjustment, to adapt, and to understand. And this goes back to that 90-10 principle, to understand that Mrs. Jackson here, she's not a criminal, all right? She just lives here. Okay. She lived here when the neighborhood was great, and it just slowly but surely went downhill, and she doesn't have the money to get herself out. But why should we punish her for that? We
Hmm.
owe it to her to protect her the same way that I would be protected, more or less, in the suburbs.
Hmm.
So, yeah, most of the difference is economic, which leads to educational. My parents were all over me about making sure I stayed in school, and my dad, I had the kind of dad who dared me to come home without school books. you know, I could try the "I don't have homework" bit. He's like, "No, son, you're just going to read the next chapter and get ahead of everybody else." But
Hmm.
you didn't have that kind of thing as much, in the poorer type neighborhoods. In fact, education was almost seen as a detriment, in those neighborhoods. You were disrespected for having an education, which I still don't understand,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
just kind of where they were.
Hmm. Yeah, I hear you.
So
I think I understand. So the neighborhood that you're from was that primarily African American people?
when I was growing up,
Yeah.
actually, no, no. In fact, I was predominantly white. In
Hmm.
fact, well, here I'll put it this way: the school system I grew up in, when I entered that system in 1973, it was 3% African American. By the time I graduated high school in 1985, it was 9% African American. I went back to the same neighborhood not too long after my father died, almost 12 years ago, and it's now 70% African American. So, yeah,
Hmm.
so I grew up in a different type of world, with
Hmm.
different accents and different approaches to things, and a more conservative point of view. I didn't necessarily have that point of view, and my parents didn't have it, but those were the people I was surrounded by.
Hmm.
So there's
Hmm.
definitely a cultural difference, which is why I had to adapt myself to what I went to work in, because it
Hmm.
was just a completely different approach to life.
Yeah. So in a way that means, don't get me wrong, but that you had like a wider cultural bracket, let's
Yeah,
say, than other people, let's say, right?
right. And
And
had
that
had to,
probably prepared you for what your life was going to be, right?
sure, sure, definitely. I mean, just I don't know that I would have been encouraged to write, in a tougher neighborhood the way I was in my high school, where my high school journalism teacher took a shine to me quickly because he saw potential in me. Okay, and he almost literally pulled me aside
Hmm.
and said, "You've got something special here. We're going to foster that. We're going to nurture this, and take it someplace." And I just ran with it. I love to write, and it showed. That's something I enjoy very much. Science and math, not so much. But our mutual friend Stefan, amazes me at times when he talks about these principles, and he's just going right over my head. I'm just like, no, I can't do that. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna listen to this groove, and I'll write about it. Let's keep it that way.
Yeah. So after high school, you went to the army, or?
I spent a couple of years bouncing around a junior college. It wasn't really for me. I wasn't fully focused, and then I wound up going to the military. Yeah, I was in the Army Reserve when I was in high school, my junior and senior year of high school. Then I went active duty in the U.S. Air Force because they let me change jobs. They let me go into what we call public affairs. I
So
was a journalist.
what did you try to do at college, or what did you try to study at?
I thought I was going to be a journalism major, but I think I
Uh.
just majored in ADHD. I tell everybody now, but for the diagnosis of ADHD in the eighth grade, you're talking to a very talented lawyer right now. But I just didn't have the attention span to sit there and stare at a book for an extended period of time, and that form of mental health wasn't a thing in the
Hmm.
80s. As
Hmm.
far as my parents
Yeah.
were concerned, well, you're just not applying yourself. You're just not trying hard enough. Doing what I can, but yeah, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do in life at that age. And sometimes you need to go away and figure stuff out, So that's how I wound up in the Air Force, and that certainly helped pretty much everything.
In which year were you born?
I was born in 1966.
66. Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Revolver, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah.
I put my entire life around records.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm 54,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, a lot of things have changed between then and now. So there's certainly a part of me that wishes I could go back and do things all over again and say, well, wait, this is my problem, and maybe my life goes differently. But hindsight and the way things wound up, it hasn't been all that bad. Could have been worse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So after college, you said that was the Air Force, right? Did you say
Yes.
that?
Yes.
And you said that you primarily worked as a journalist there.
They call it being a public affairs specialist at the time. So I wrote articles for my base newspaper. I interacted with the civilian media. I met Katie Couric. I talked to Dan Rather on the phone. I've got a good picture buried somewhere of me and Sam Donaldson, who was a prominent journalist at the time. So we also did press releases for them, and we gave tours, all that good stuff. You came to my base and wanted to know what it was all about. You came to see me, or you came to my office anyway.
Yeah.
And you might get assigned to me, and well, all right, I'll take you on a tour of the base. So I did that for almost 5 years.
And what made you leave that position, or do you remember?
Young. I was young, and I didn't fully understand the politics of the military. And I saw the job that my senior advisor, my senior NCO was doing, non-commissioned officer was doing. I didn't want to do that job. It didn't appeal to me. So, my term of service ran out. I extended for 6 months so I could take a tour in Japan. I was stationed in South Carolina for 2.5 years. And then I went to Japan for 2 years. So I extended to take that tour. But by the time that was over with, I wanted to try something else. And there are days I regret that decision, but most days I don't.
How was Japan?
Japan was awesome. that was a great 2 years. I'm in my early 20s, and I'm fit, and I'm single, and I have no responsibilities to anybody. My only bill was my phone bill for the call I made to my parents, once every other week. This is before the internet. This was in 1990, between 1990 and 92. So there was no internet. So I would call my parents once every other week, and the rest of the time was for me. So I got to explore Japan, caught a couple of really great gigs over there, tons of different record stores. It was a fantastic experience. I've said I want to go back. I just don't, I got to put the money together, and I'll go back one of these days. But that was a wonderful tour.
Yeah. And I imagine, and I know, but that music was a big part of your life, even from childhood, right? And
yes.
Are you actually a collector
of music? We could say that, yeah. I think I'm gonna call that a yes. I think the 4,000 plus pieces in my living room between LPs and CDs would go ahead and we'll send that towards the affirmative. But it doesn't count the stuff I sold off years ago.
I'm just careful with my questions sometimes.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. I'm definitely a collector. I love it. It's pretty much all I do now. Since I moved here, and I put my house together, and I've got everything I need. So it's one of those things where, okay, well, if I'm going to splurge on something, I'm going to one of the many record stores in the Chicago area, and I'm just, adding to my collection. I feel really bad for my daughter, who's going to have to curate this stuff, once I shuffle off the mortal coil, shall we say, to the point where I've already left her instructions. You call these guys and have them come up and take care of it, because it's a lot. But yeah, it's what I love doing.
Yeah. And do you remember if you brought any records from Japan home?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. One of my favorite finds. In fact, I cover it in my book, which I should have shamelessly plugged by now. It's a book called "I Can't Be the Only One Hearing This: A Lifetime of Music Through Eclectic Years." Yeah, one of the biggest finds I made over there was a Miles Davis album called "Star People," which I had been looking for the better part of 5 years in America. For the first time I heard a song called "Star on Sicily" in 1985. Yeah, 1985, and I was obsessed with that song. And I found out what album it was on, and it was out of print. And
Mm-hmm.
I looked high and low. I mean, I looked in St. Louis, I looked in South Carolina, I looked in Georgia. I could not find it. I could not find it. And I tell the story in my book about a record store that was a couple of stops away from the newspaper office where I had to go in Tokyo every Tuesday. A store called Wave. I don't know if you've ever been there. I'm trying to remember which district it's in.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in the Roppongi. It might be in the Roppongi district. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But it's 3 floors of music, and I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love that place. I mean, jazz had its own floor, which
Mm-hmm.
means I just lost my mind up there. So I'm going through the Miles Davis section one day, and I'm just going through CD after CD after CD, and there, towards the very back is a copy of Star People, and that sound that girls made when the Beatles took the stage in the early 60s, or on that song. Yeah, that sound. It's almost what came out of my mouth. So yeah, it's that, and there's several other pieces I have, but that's the one I cherish the most. It still has the kanji writing on it, the Japanese writing on it, and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's a couple of things I brought back that you're gonna have to wring them from my hands. I'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the music has been the constant throughout, you could say, like even after
Absolutely.
returning back to the US, and then uh, you applied for the police academy, and
Right. And it's not an exaggeration to say that without music, I could have gone mad, just from dealing with people's troubles from day to day to day. And it's exhausting. I come home and I put a record on, and, things get better.
uh, was it possible to listen to music in the car when you were working?
I made it possible. Yes. You bet. You betcha. So, it was FM radio for the longest, and that was tolerable. But, given my more eclectic and exotic tastes, it could be taxing. I would try to find like a college radio station or something, or an independent radio station, which helped. But yeah, towards the end, we had CD players in the car, and I would bring a couple of CDs to work. And as you get more experience, and as I became a senior officer, I got a lot more. I got a lot more leeway from my bosses, especially since I was one of their favorite teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it actually got to the point, and I'm not kidding, where we stood in roll call one day where we all gathered at the beginning of the day to get briefed about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a new probationary officer, and my sergeant looked at him and said, "What do you know about music?" and and the kid said, "I don't know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that." And he said, "Well, you're about to learn a whole lot more." So I'm assuming it was okay, but yeah, I had to do that because you go from accident to disturbance to robbery to accident to disturbance, and it's just, to a shooting here, a cutting there, or even worse. You've got to find that place that that
Mm-hmm.
that recenters you, that brings you back from that abyss. Otherwise, you will just truly lose it. And that has happened out there, and I didn't want that to happen to me. So yeah,
Yeah.
music was definitely a factor in the car.
And so you always had a partner when you were working in the
Not
street?
always. Not all. We didn't have the manpower to
Mm-hmm.
have two-man cars. From a safety aspect, yeah, every car should have two people in it. But from a practical aspect, no. And to be honest, some days I like being by myself,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't have to argue about what music I'm playing, and I don't have to argue about where we're going for lunch or anything like that. I just go out there and do me all day. Do my job, get my reports written, and find that inner peace in the car, because sometimes you just don't want to interact with anybody. But having the right partner was the key. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I always say there were people you ride with, and there are your partners. And I could
I
count
see.
I could count my true partners on this hand. Okay, where we could anticipate how the call was going to go by looking at one another. Nothing
Mm-hmm.
had to be said. My One of my best partners, if something was about to go sideways, he just kind of leaned his head just a little bit one way. I'm like, okay, here we go. So all of a sudden you shift over that way. And it really is like a marriage. There's an old saying, if you marry a cop, you marry his partner. And that's true,
Mm-hmm.
because we talk about everything, and you keep it within the confines of the car, but That's just the way it goes, because you see your partner at work more than you see your spouse.
Yes, yes. And as we said earlier, it's really is about communication.
Oh
And
yeah,
just the example you just, with the gesture with the head, like
right.
yes. uh, and like the yeah, I'm interested, like you said, like the say it would have been safer to always be with more, not alone
Yeah,
out
yeah.
there.
Within
Yeah.
the for now, bear in mind that there are assignments that are one-man assignments, like accidents and prior burglaries and whatnot. And there are things that are two-man assignments, like disturbances or robberies or what have you, which means you'd send two one-man cars as opposed to just having
Ah, I
two
see. I
people in
see.
one car. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
a safety thing. People, especially in America, will get upset when they see two police cars pulling over, behind one guy on a traffic stop. Well, a traffic stop is a two-man assignment. So if
Hmm.
I pull somebody over and I'm by myself, I call out my location and the kind of car I'm looking at, what the driver looks like, and then another car comes to assist me. It's nothing
Hmm.
personal.
Hmm.
It's nothing. There's no evil component to it. It's just a procedure. It's
Hmm.
not a big deal because numbers are always better. So yeah, but you don't want to go into certain calls as a one man car by yourself. Okay, if I
Hmm.
get a call for shots fired, that's active, I'm not just going to go charging in there alone. I'm going to get on the radio and I'm going to tell the person who's assisting me or whoever I'm assisting, let's meet at this intersection, and then
Yeah.
we'll go in together.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So yeah, we're still safe about it. But the right partner, you don't want to give that up. You don't want to give that up. You like having, you like being in the car together. You like responding to calls together because, like I said, you can read each other and we can anticipate what's going to go on, and we already have that level of understanding.
Hmm.
It's not unlike being in a band where
Hmm.
you look over at Tony or you look back at Pat, and he kind of does a little thing. It's like, oh, okay, this is where we're going. All right,
Hmm.
that's fine. It's very similar.
Hmm. Hmm. So how was the first time after the academy? How
The
how
first
was that?
time,
Yeah, the
the
first
first
time,
time
first
you
time, first time you, whatever, like when you were working and you had the first time you were in the field, let's say, for
Okay,
real.
my first day on the street for real is kind of a blur because you're clueless. You have
Hmm.
absolutely no idea what's going on out there. My first day is memorable because my training officer upset whoever he was talking to and he spit on us. and,
Oh.
and my training officer maced him, with a chemical spray. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is unusual, but the first year you're just trying to hold on. You're just trying to absorb as much information as you can get from as many people as you can get. What you'll find is that everybody's got a style, and
Hmm.
some people have to be a little more hard-hearted and they want to act like they're a drill instructor in a movie or something like that, or some of them want to act like they're on TV. They want all the glamour and whatnot. Other people are nurturers, where they get close to people and they try to kind of nurse them back to the right side of whatever the problem is. And your job is to take all of that information, pour it into a funnel,
Hmm.
and whatever comes out on the other end is you. When all is said and done. So yeah, the first times in the field, everything is fascinating, everything is new, everything is exciting, everything that comes out on the radio is just going to be, oh my God, this is going to be great. And you get there and there's not a whole lot to it. It's not like TV at all. I'll put it that way. Um, I've told people if they did a real, honest to God TV show about the day-to-day life of uniformed officers, nobody would watch because it's boring. It's absolutely boring. What it boils down to is it's an 8-hour shift, which is 3 or 4 hours of boredom, 45 seconds of sheer terror, and the rest of it is paperwork
Hmm.
because you've got to go in and write your reports. But yeah, the first 2 years is just trying to learn, just trying to see how people think, how people do things, how your fellow officers do things, how the people on the street respond to that. What was a good thing to say to somebody? What was a bad thing to say to somebody? And then just learning the procedures and getting the habits down that you need to build the foundation for your career.
And how long were your shifts when you started out?
8 hours. 8 hours. I bounced between. Well, wait a minute. When I first came out, I was on what we call an overlay shift that you really don't need to know about. Not that it's a secret or anything, it just doesn't matter. I worked from 10 p.m. 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. And we rotated hours every 3 weeks. And then I went to another platoon where I worked from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. or 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. And again, with 3-week rotations. The night watch, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., that was a permanent watch. You had to volunteer for that. You also got an extra 10% in pay for what we call shift differential. But, no, I couldn't do that. I hit the wall at about 3 a.m. and I'm done. But 8-hour shifts, and if you're not done with what you need to be done with by the end of the shift, you stay and you get paid overtime for it.
Yeah, I was going to ask. So the reports, you were writing them during the 8 hours or
You did your
after?
best to do that. That was the goal. Now, if you're busy, if things are going crazy as they tend to, and it's a low priority report, an accident or what have you, get back there, get back there on the street, get back out there, and handle these calls. And if you stack up 3 or 4 reports, that's just the way it goes, and then you can come back in towards the end of the shift and try to write your reports or stay after, and just sit there at your computer and get that stuff done. And mind you, I'm talking about patrol work. I was a detective for 5 years as part of my career, and your hours just go out the window. Okay, the schedule says when you're supposed to be there, but it rarely works out that way.
So what is a detective in that context? What's the definition?
An investigator. When when we talk about the guys in uniforms, we talk about first responders. That's the people who get called initially. When your thing happened, when your stuff was stolen, a guy with a uniform comes out and talks to you about that. That would be the traditional procedure. It didn't go exactly that way for you because the circumstances were a little different, but normally a uniformed officer would come out, take your initial report. He'll write a report that gets passed to the detectives, the investigators. So I'll read that report. I'll call you back and I'll ask you for another statement, and then I'll start my investigation from there. Okay, well, your gear got stolen. Where's it going to go? Let's start checking the pawn shops. Things like that. Let's talk to people. Let's look at the surveillance video from wherever you may have been, if any exists. Let's see if we can find any witnesses. That's the stuff you see on TV. That's the guys in the suits and ties. That come out and do that kind of thing, and their hours can be unbelievably long.
I can imagine.
So I can be scheduled from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and I catch a case at 3:35. Well, I'm just there. It's time to work, and that has destroyed more than a couple of marriages. Because they just can't grasp how much time you have to spend at work.
And you said you did that for about 5 years.
About 5 years, yeah.
And in which part of your career was that? The early on, or
that was between years 13 and 18, give or take. So somewhere in that neighborhood. I did assault, robbery, and I wound up doing primarily white collar crime, identity theft and some cyber crimes and whatnot, embezzlements, that kind of thing. That was fun. I enjoyed that, but it's exhausting. It's exhausting. It's a lot of work. You got to want to do it. A lot of people think that they'll go to a detective unit because they don't want to take radio calls in the car anymore, and that's dumb because you're going to work harder once you put the suit on. And when I went back to patrol, and I should express that in my department, detective is not a promotion; it's a lateral transfer. In a larger department like New York, Chicago, LA, it's a promotion. You get moved up through the detective ranks. It's not the same for us, in St. Louis. So, when I went back to patrol, I was stunned by how easy it was. You just show up and you deal with what's in front of you, and then you go home. And when relief is called, so that's it. I'm done. So it's a different world, but it's all deeply involving. When you have to deal with the prosecutor's office, and you have to go on court appearances, and you're executing search warrants. It's trying, and it takes a lot out of your day.
I think this is probably not a best comparison, but I was a nurse for a while.
I'll give you that. Yeah.
And what was interesting was that I think maybe it was 6 or 7 months that it took to kind of like know everything, sort of, in that field where I was working, right?
Absolutely.
So with the police work, how long did it take for you to see everything? Do you remember?
Did I see everything?
I don't know.
We,
That's why I'm
I
asking.
wanted to, no kidding, I wanted to put together a game of police bingo one of these days and just come up with come up with certain situations like,
It's a great idea.
see that one, but it really depends on the circumstance. There's always a different nuance to something, but wow, how long did it take? Certain calls get redundant within a couple of years. You know, when you see, when you go on a burglary scene or you go on a car accident or what have you, those adapt to pretty quickly. Some of the more serious crimes, you know, the child abuses and, you know, some more heinous things like that, they take a little longer to adjust to. But I would probably say it was a decade before I could really settle into that. Let me make a bingo board, you know, kind of thing. Because some of the young kids would come up and say, well, this thing's going on here. Like, yeah, I've seen one. Or they'd go racing off to the shooting scene. Aren't you coming? Yeah, I'm on my way. So it's like, I've seen one. Let's go. I'll be there in a second. You know, it's not that I'm lazy. It's that I'm experienced and I already know what's going to happen here. So it takes a little time, and nursing is a prime example of that. You know, the first time somebody goes cold blue in front of you, you know, your hair's on fire. You don't know what you're going to do. You don't know how to handle that. But the more of them you do, the more routine it gets. Yes. It's like, oh, but yeah, I know what he needs. Hang on, let me go get this medication real quick. I'll take care of it. Hang on, nobody panic. It's going to be fine. So yeah, it's just a question of adjusting, and it depends on where you work. You know, I came out of the academy and went to one of the roughest areas in St. Louis, so you learn a lot fast. You know, because you see a lot of things fast. Whereas I retired from a district that was a bit more mellow. You know, so it takes a little longer for people to see those exciting things, and they still get all keyed up when things happen. And relax, you know, we'll be there in a second. Hang on, you know, let's take in the big picture. And you don't see as many of those incidents. You know, I could tell the training officers I was working with, I could tell they hadn't been on nearly as many scenes, you know, shooting scenes or whatnot as I had, because they were still kind of running around like their skulls were on fire. And I'm just, relax. You know, it's gonna be okay. You know, let's put some crime scene tape up over here. Let's put the silhouette down here. You talk to those people over there. I'll talk to these people over here. It's gonna be okay. Just you know, because you don't want to show panic. You don't want to show that you don't know what's going on out there. I mean, it's what I told my kids is whatever you do, look like you know what you're talking about. You know, especially when you don't know what you're talking about. just sound authoritative. Yes, sir. It's right over there.
You know, it's exactly the same in music as a player, right? You want to do exactly the same.
Especially in an improvisational format.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a jazz fan, and I would look at what some of these bands were doing, or you know, like Miles Davis didn't want to hear you solo the same way on consecutive nights. You know, you start playing something that was familiar, you just turn around and start looking at you. Yeah, I've heard that. Let's
play something else.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, when I listen to this Dickman improvs, I'm just kind of like, okay, where are they going, and you know, how'd they get there? You know, how does that work out? It's just you're in the moment. You just got to be in the moment for it.
Yeah. So you said that you like in your whole career you had less than 5. You said less than 5 real partners.
Yeah, I rode with a lot of people. Let's be clear about that. I rode with dozens of people.
Yeah.
But the people that you have that deep level of communication with, the people I still talk to, even post-retirement. You know, the people, when I see something happening in the news, I call them, hey, you okay? You know, that kind of thing. You know, it's the difference between having an acquaintance and having a friend and having a friend and having a brother. You know, that kind of thing. It's a deep relationship. You know, it's not something you can base around one single thing. It's just a shared experience, you know, that takes place over an extended period of time. And those people, yeah, I've had about 5 of those. You know, and you know, and it's not to denigrate the other people I rode with. They were fine, you know, for the most part. But you just, you know how it is. The older you get, the fewer real friends you feel like you have. You know, you kind of peel away the acquaintances, the people you just kind of know. I mean, I got 4,700 friends on Facebook, you know, but I'll probably really communicate with 2 of them. So it's just, I'm not just going to tell everybody everything. It doesn't work that way,
Mhm.
but when you have that kind of relationship with somebody in your car, it makes things a lot easier. One of my favorite partners and I, we were both King Crimson and Frank Zappa fanatics. He was my best friend in the academy. He has his chapter in my book, and I went home with a stomach ache frequently from laughing so hard at the things we were talking about in the car all day. That was just great. And we could talk to each other about anything. And we had that little head nod communication thing going. And you just don't find that, around the corner. It doesn't work that way.
Mhm. Mhm. And so let just for me to understand even better. So since you said the manpower wasn't enough to have always two people in a car, right?
Right.
Um, so with these good partners, let's say, um, so how much time did you really spend with them writing?
Yeah, it would depend on the manpower situation that day. Now, when I rode with my best friend, we had quite a few people. This was back in '97, when
Yeah.
we had a lot more people on the job. So it was much easier to get a two man car assignment. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it, and there's a longer story behind how we got together in the first place, and that we worked on the opposite sides of town. And when his partner left to go to another department, his superiors asked, "Who do you want to ride with? Pick anybody you want in the city," and he picked me.
Mm-hmm.
So I got transferred down to him.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, if you have the manpower, yeah, you can stay together. But there are days, let's just say I'm working a 6-day stretch. There may be 2 days when we don't have the manpower to ride together. So we'll be in separate cars.
Yeah, I see.
So I don't know that I can't give you a specific percentage because, like I said, it just depends on how many people we've got that day. It
Mm-hmm.
was a lot harder towards the end of my career to have a steady partner relationship than it was at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
One of the five was one of my last partners towards the end of my career. And once again, there was the musical vibe. He loves horn. He grew up playing French
Mm-hmm.
horn and trombone. So he loved horn sections of music. So I bought a Chicago album, Chicago 3, I think it was, because it had a couple of killer horn sections. And we just kind of bonded over that. That doesn't happen all the time. But there were days when we'd come in and he'd say, and the boss would say, "Hey, we're short. We got to split you two up." And
Mm-hmm.
it was a disappointment, but you just kind of got through the day, or you call it, man, you meet me over here. And I kind of pass a CD from my car to his car. Just play this while you're out there, and see what's what. But it just depends on where you work, is the bottom line.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting. I had no idea that that's the way, at least it went in your department.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so before I ask more about the job, so you have a daughter, right?
Yes, an 18-year-old daughter.
18 years old. Wow, great.
Yeah, let that sink in, folks.
Yeah.
I don't believe it either. I kind of breeze past it.
Yeah, it's like my daughter is 16 months old now.
Oh,
But
enjoy this time, Marcus.
but
Enjoy
like
this time.
what people, like people say it goes so fast, and it's
It
absolutely
does.
right. It goes so
It,
fast.
it's so fast.
Yes. But I think it goes like there are like two aspects to the fast. So first of all, it goes really fast, right?
Right.
But also, what I didn't expect is that within the time that goes fast, also a lot happens.
Yes.
So it's like it goes fast, but it's not as if it's very eventful, right?
Yeah. 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 You get to pack a lot of information into a relatively short period of time, and as I'm sure you're figuring out, by the time you adapt to that one particular bit of information, it's gone. It's obsolete.
Yes,
You have to
yes,
you have to move on to the next thing. So
yeah.
I just knew I understood my daughter and how she interacted with her friends and so on and so on. And nope, as soon as I adapted to that, she was on to the next thing. So you have to just learn how to keep changing. Once again, like jazz, like improv, you just have to keep shifting to whatever the new theme is and
Hmm.
keep going forward from there. And now that she's a teenager, my daughter just doesn't need me that much right now.
Yeah.
You reach that point where you stop being the greatest thing in her life, where she worships the ground you work on, and then you turn into the chauffeur and the ATM. That's your job. That's it. Dad, I need $40 to go to the mall. Oh, and can you give me a ride to the mall? Yeah. All right. That's fine. So you just adapt and keep moving. But yeah, it's scary because in my head, I can still pick her up and hold her right
Mhm.
here. But now she's practically ready for college, and you can't believe how fast it goes.
Mhm. Mhm. What would you say is the biggest change within you that being a dad uh, created?
You certainly understand your friends when they gripe about their kids more because I started relatively late. you know,
Yeah.
I had my daughter when I was 35. And most of my friends were doing that when they were 25. Or
Hmm.
younger. So they would gripe about their kids and they would say they don't have time for this. So you try to talk about something like as simple as movies. Have you seen this movie? No, I haven't seen that movie. I don't have time to see this kind of movie. Or the only movies I see are animated. I mean, I believe me, I do Pixar movies backwards and forwards for a while, because I didn't have time to see anything else. But yeah, you learn how to relate to people who are going through the same situation. Um, as a policeman, it helped me with kids on the street because you started to relate to that age a little bit more. They wouldn't be exactly like my child,
Yeah.
but I'd have a frame of reference.
Hmm. Hmm.
How many times have I been able to deal with a more hostile child by talking about SpongeBob? I'd see a SpongeBob toy in the corner. I'm like, oh, my daughter likes Patrick and whatnot, and they would stop. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, I don't know if I like Patrick that much. We could talk about that for a while, and you're de-escalating the situation. So you learn how to just pull things from here and there, and you say, okay, well this is going to help me right now. This is going to help me. So yeah, it helps in a multitude of ways. You become a lot more patient,
Hmm.
with
Yeah.
people because your kids are doing things and you just want to tear your hair out sometimes. Like, no, no, let them figure it out. It's going to be okay. You kind of got to do the same thing with the kids on the street, or
Mm.
my last partner's daughter just turned 5, I want to say, and I was over at their house one day for dinner, and I was talking to his daughter, but I almost sounded like her while we were talking. And he kind of looked at me, and his wife looked at me, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, you're a dad. You can
Yeah.
relate to these stuff." Like, yeah, yeah, I got it. It's no problem. So yeah, I'd say you become a little more adaptable, a little more understanding, and a lot more patient.
Yeah. So between uh, working many hours every day,
Lots. Yeah.
being a dad, and being a music fan, a music fanatic, right?
Right.
Real
Right.
fanatic.
Yeah.
Um, was there a time in your life where the music was sort of like on the back burner a little bit?
Oh yeah. 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 Absolutely. In fact, that baby time, and mind you, during the time when she was a baby, I was also trying to be in a band as well. So you can add that to the stack, and that was that's what we call Greek tragedy right there. That did not work out. That did not work out very well. But yeah, something's got to give, somewhere along the way. So my trick would be to sneak a record on while I was holding my daughter or feeding her or what have you, or walking around and
Hmm.
trying to gradually introduce her to the stuff that I was listening to. And you will know how it is with kids. They're gonna kick aside what you want right away and kind of come to it on their own. One of the proudest days of my life was the day when my daughter was going through my collection, and she said, "Oh, you have Pink Floyd," and she might have been 12, something like that. I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I have Pink Floyd." Well, I really like that one record. I don't know what it's called, and she makes a little triangle shape. I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, Dark Side of the Moon."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So you try to adapt. They try to bring them into your world a little bit, which helps you get what you want while you're doing what you need to do. And
Hmm.
sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. You just kind of
Yeah.
push it off to the side. But I still say that one of my proudest days as a dad was when we were driving home from Chicago, as a matter of fact, in 2017. And we were just about home, and Soundgarden's Black Hole Sun came on,
Hmm.
and we both started singing the chorus. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is cool. This is a good moment. But you don't get a lot of those, so you just embrace them while you can.
Mm, wonderful. So you retired last year,
Yes,
correct? Yeah.
correct. And I stopped working in April. I had a lot of sick time to burn, and COVID was running around, and I was susceptible. And
Mm-hmm.
I just finished training my last probationary officer, and I basically went to my boss and asked him, why am I still here when I've got all this sick time to burn? And you know how some bosses will look at you and go, "You're here because you're dedicated," blah blah blah. Whereas my boss looked at me and said, "Yeah, I was wondering why you were still here too." I should go burn some sick time or something. So yeah, and I did that until July when I came off the payroll, and then I moved to Chicago in October.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So here I sit.
And now it's very cold and windy.
It's very cold. It's very cold and windy. And thank God my office is 20 feet down the hallway from my living room. So I don't have to go outside, and I have my groceries delivered. So I know it's really cold out there, but I'm not going out there. I might go out tomorrow for like 5 minutes just to say I felt it and then run back inside. But no, I'm not. I got plenty to do in this room. Thank you very much. I'm fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are you missing the police work?
Honestly, no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, I say that in that I was pretty fried by the time it was all over with, and you just want to get out there and you just want to get away with it. I miss some of the people I used to work with,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a long time before I could watch one of those cop shows on TV. I couldn't do it. People say, "Oh, you need to see this." No, I really don't. Not right now. I can't do it. But I finally started watching one show my sister wanted me to watch, DCI Banks on BBC, and I watched one episode. And I'm like, okay, it's a fine show. The acting is good, blah blah blah. But no, I don't need that right now. My world is music now, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm much happier in that world. When the Capitol thing on January 6th kicked off, there was a part of me that wanted to go back because I wanted to do some investigating and start bringing some people in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's not going to fly. Let me get back down there and get my commission back for a second and go assist with the investigation. Of course, that wouldn't happen in a million years. So you just kind of let it go after that. But no, it was an important part of my life. It was a quarter of a century of my life, but it's done now,
Mm-hmm.
and I can step away from it, and I can grow a beard, and I can twirl up the hair and all that kind of stuff I could not do. And people were saying, "Wow, I can't believe you grew a beard," and I'd say, "Well, look, it's the first time since the '70s between my dad, the military, and the police department where nobody can tell me what to do with my face." So I finally, there was a no beard policy. Some departments will let you have one. Mine wouldn't. I could have a mustache, but I couldn't have a beard. So it's just, I'm enjoying this life. I'm enjoying this freedom. I'm
Mm-hmm.
enjoying knowing that I don't have to base my life around what time I have to be at roll call, because
Mm-hmm.
there is nothing more frustrating to me as I got into music journalism than being in the middle of a good writing frenzy, then looking at my watch and going, I got to stop because I got to go put the body armor on, and I got to
Mm-hmm.
get ready to go to work, and I had to shift modes,
Mm-hmm.
and thoughts would get lost, and ideas would get misplaced, that kind of thing. So now I don't have to worry about that as much. This last year has obviously been traumatic for everyone with COVID and all, and in addition to COVID, and in addition to the retirement that didn't go exactly the way I wanted to, I lost two good friends,
Mm-hmm.
including a mentor, uh, who was killed in front of a pawn shop. When the George Floyd's riots broke out, he was trying to defend a pawn shop and he got shot and killed.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple months ago, back in August, one of the kids I trained was shot and killed responding to a call while he was training another officer.
Oh.
So those things will weigh on you after a while.
Mm-hmm.
Between that, just a kid who's at home antsy because she can't go to school and be with her friends and whatnot, all that stuff weighs on you. So
Yeah.
the thought of still being out there on the street right now, just no, no, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just
No, I mean,
I don't miss that part at all.
I totally get it, obviously, and it just the amount of dedication and commitment you gave that part of your life.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
It's an immense. I don't know. I couldn't imagine doing that. I have to say.
It's traumatic is the word. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just trauma. after trauma after trauma after trauma. And this is before COVID. This is before COVID. Excuse me. My job is to respond to bad news. Okay, okay? That's the gig. Right? Not one time did anybody come on the radio and say, calling all cars, please respond to the Johnson house. They just had a baby girl and there's cake. That call never happened. That call never happens. Okay, you have to go to bad news, whatever it is, and that's exhausting. It's absolutely
Yeah.
exhausting. Even if that's what you want to do, you have to get away from it every now and then. And sadly, there are far too many policemen out there who don't have hobbies, who just live for the job, and then when they can't do the job anymore, they don't know what to do with themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have tons of things I can do.
So again, maybe a stupid questions, but are you or were you encouraged not to share that you were feeling, your emotions? Like, were you? Do you know what I mean? Like, was it?
Yeah. There's a macho component to policing, and in the early days of my career, yeah, we didn't focus that much on mental health. Suck it up, Buttercup. Get on back out there and do the job. But as time has gone on, like everything else, we're evolving. So now they have a counseling program set up. Where if you feel like you're having issues, make a phone call, go talk to these people. And then they'll help you. They'll help you deal with whatever it is you're feeling. I am completely unashamed to say that I've been in therapy for 6 years. It's the best thing for me. And I didn't go to one of their therapists. I went and got my own. And that has helped me cope with a lot of stuff out there. I mean, I'm not going to talk about it here, but if we want to talk about it privately, we can. But one of the worst calls I went on, I mean, I would have melted down if not for my therapist. It was horrible, and this is when I have 23 years on. This is when I've seen everything.
Yes.
Which tells you how bad it was.
Yes.
So yeah, as time has gone on, we're more and more tolerant is the wrong word. We're more and more willing to send you to get the help you need. I told the kids I train the same thing. There's no shame. Okay, if you feel like you need to talk to somebody, in fact, I gave a couple of the number of my therapist. I said, here, call her. Call her and tell her I sent you. And you work through these things because you can't get through the day-to-days, without good mental health.
So at some point you didn't have to pretend anymore that it didn't touch you, right?
Right. I mean, you do your job. Okay. You can feel horrible in the car and you can emote to your partner and tell them all your troubles and blah, blah, blah. Now, once you get out of the car to handle the call, you're a professional. Let's do the job. Let's get done what needs to get done. But at the end of the day, go do what you need to do. Go talk to who you need to talk to, and it'll be okay. So yeah, we're evolving. We're getting there. But like any other like any other macho institution, it's going to take a second before everybody kind of catches up. And it's generational. I'm older than you, and I come from a generation of men don't show their feelings and what have you, and I had to kind of power my way through that. To you can show your feelings, but you can only do it for 5 minutes. Now we're out to like, okay, well, I'll give you half an hour. To now, okay, well, why don't you go seek a little therapy? Go talk to somebody that can help you out. And we'll be here for you when you get back. So it's like I say, it's getting better. It's not like it was in the old days.
You said that music was part of the self, was some sort of medicine, self-therapy, like even before you saw a therapist, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And would you say that you discovered music like early on when you discovered music? Did it already have that aspect to it?
Well, I was 6 when I heard David Bowie sing Space Oddity. And a 6-year-old obviously has no real sense of context or deep meaning. But when you come from a world where I was listening to Motown records and Stax, with the Jackson 5 and Otis Redding and Aretha Franklin and James Brown and whatnot, and that's still near and dear to my heart. Space Oddity is one hell of a shift. It's where they were like, what's what's this? Well, what's happening here? And growing up in suburban neighborhoods where I heard more rock music, where I heard the corporate rock from Journey and REO Speedwagon and Styx and whatnot, that opens up your avenue, just a little bit more. Certain records, and I just actually posted 2 pieces on this on my blog, cerdexsongs.com. Thank you. Where I listed 20 game-changing albums, and I think that's kind of what you're driving at. That things that have just fundamentally kind of shifted the way you look at music, like Bowie's Space Oddity or Wendy Carlos's Switched on Bach, where she's doing the Moog synthesizer, classical pieces. That was a game changer. Genesis Seconds Out was a game changer because I started to understand what progressive rock was. All through King Crimson's Discipline and Miles Davis, Kind of Blue, all those kind of records. Yeah, all those kind of represent a fundamental shift in my mindset, and that opens the door to tons of other things. So I would say, excuse me, that college radio is what I found when I was looking for more 80s King Crimson stuff, because I found this radio station that played Bruford and played Alan Holdsworth and things like that. But they also played REM and the B-52s and 10,000 Maniacs and whatnot. So now another door has been opened. It just goes on and on and on. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I was 8 when I heard Switched on Bach, something like that. And there's always a little thing here and there where you're like, okay, well, this is different. Let me go down this avenue. And you start seeing the world a little bit differently. When my dad introduced me to Jean-Luc Ponty and Return to Forever in 1978, 79, that shifts your mind fundamentally, because you know how it is with your parents. You don't want to listen to what they're listening to. That's not cool. But one day I'm walking through the living room while he's playing Jean-Luc Ponty, and it just grabbed me because I was into rock and Cosmic Messenger was playing, and I couldn't figure out what this sound was. I said, what is that sound? It's like, it's an electric violin. I'm like, oh. And next thing I know, I'd gone from trying to get through the living room as quickly as possible to sitting next to him on the couch, reading liner notes. Oh, wow, this is great. So yeah, you become aware of these things more, I think, as you get older. I'd say from the time I was about 12 or something, I started to really understand the fundamental shifting that music could bring to you.
Yeah. And would you say that you're still as excited about music as you were when you were a kid?
100%, 1,000%. I live to find new bands now. Bandcamp is a godsend. I mean, I have found more stuff that I've become addicted to, via Bandcamp. I'm obsessed with and I plug them all the time. They need to start paying me soon, but I plug an Australian post-metal band called We Lost the Sea, and they are amazing. And I was into post-rock already. I was into Tortoise, bands like that. And I just wanted to hear something different. And I just happened to stumble over this album called Departure Songs. And I started playing it, and the opening tune is called A Gallant Gentleman. It's really emotional stuff. I mean, it really tugs at the heartstrings. And I thought, well, this is great. And I let it keep going. The second tune is called Bogatyri. It's 11 and a half minutes long. And it starts out with a really clean, repetitive guitar riff. And it just slowly builds until you're in full-on metal by the time the tune is over with. But it's so powerful. I kid you not, Marcus. I was in tears by the time that thing was over with. I was typing when I started, and I stopped typing. Next thing I know, I'm doing the head bob back and forth, and somewhere along the way where they end up, they're in full metal mode, somebody stepped on an envelope filter or a flanger, I'm not sure which it was, and waterworks. I was just done. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I live for moments like that, and those are 1 in 100. You'll hear a lot of good stuff like, oh, that's really cool. Oh yeah, I dig that. I'm going to buy that. But something that hits you on that level, yeah, I live for that. I'm hoping to stumble over that later this afternoon when the Super Bowl's over. I'll go over. I'll go looking again.
Would you say that experience, if you have an experience like that you just described nowadays, does it somehow connect you with something from the past? Or is it something that is more of a thing that goes forward, if that makes any sense.
It does, and it's a great question. I want to say that I'm more in the moment than
Hmm.
anything else, but there's always going to be something that may trigger
Hmm.
a certain memory. When I got word that my mom had passed away, I was playing Miles Davis's Nefertiti,
Hmm.
and I could hear every time I heard that song, I immediately think of her, and that may get me a little bit weepy.
Hmm.
Um, but for the most part, I'm going to say I'm in the moment. When the first time I really heard "God Only Knows" from the Beach Boys,
Hmm.
when I was really listening to it, that gets me emotional. Or Samuel Barber's Adagio for strings, that does me in. But that's all. I can't connect that to any particular person or event. It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
it's just one of those things where I was in this moment and I heard it and it was amazing. XTC's Dear God, I might think of a guy I was in the Air Force with because he's the one that came running down to my dorm room, banging on the door, and I
Hmm.
swing it open and he's holding up the CD. You've got to hear this, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, for the most part, I think I'm in the moment. That we lost the sea, I was right there. That's
I will, I will, I will listen to that album after our
Oh,
conversation.
yeah, I'll send you a link. It's
Yes.
wow. I mean, and they've done another record since then called Triumph and Disaster, which
Uh-huh.
sounds a little different, but it's also very emotional.
Hmm.
And without going too far off the rails, I interviewed one of their guitar players by the name of Mark Owen, and that was without question one of the most open and honest interviews I've done. To the point where I read his answers and I emailed him. You sure you want me to print this? He's like, yeah, go ahead. And I'm like, okay. So I mean, it's just he was feeling things, as the writer, obviously, and as part of the band, the same way I was feeling it as the listener. So yeah, you're gonna have to check that one out. But those are gold. Those are absolute gold. And
Yeah.
and there were other times like with Zappa's Roxy Band where my brain is stimulated in ways that people who just can't fathom that kind of music can understand. I mean, the intricate notes, the time signatures, everything. Like, my God, he wrote that.
Hmm.
Who has the sense to write that kind of thing? So yeah, I'm gonna declare myself in the moment
Yeah,
nine
yeah,
times out of
yeah.
ten when that kind of thing happens.
Yeah, I think for me it's like the great music, say, kind of like transcends the circumstances
Yeah,
in which I first heard that music. And
right.
I remember that maybe like a David Sylvian album, for example, that I listened to with my first girlfriend, let's say, right?
Right.
And then somehow like a couple years later, like you have a new girlfriend, right? And like you listen to the same album, right? And like
Right.
sometimes feels like maybe you shouldn't, because it's sort of like if you know what I mean.
Yeah, you're almost cheating on her.
Yeah, exactly. But then I realized, no. This music is universal and it's here and now, and it has nothing to do with
Right.
whatever it is attached to in my past
Yeah.
memories, right?
What
Yeah,
what you hope is what you hope is that the person you're with now will relate to it on the same level that the
yeah.
last person did. Now, you and I both know that doesn't always work out,
No. Hmm.
but if you
Hmm.
can get close, I was dating someone who just, who really liked God Only Knows, for example, and then I was dating somebody else, but my love for that song is not going to change,
No.
so I played the
Yeah.
song for her and she caught it on the same level I did because she thought I was an idiot when I was talking about how I was almost crying when
Hmm.
I heard this song. I said, you know what? We're going to play this song. And I said, you're not going to do anything else. You're going to sit right here and you're going to listen to this song. And by the time it was over, she was just kind of like grasping her, like, oh, wow. I'm like, yeah, that feeling right there. So you just hope you can pass that kind of thing along. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But really, music is a personal experience.
Yeah.
Even if you're standing in a club with 300 other people crammed together, that what's coming off that stage belongs to you, in your own special way.
Yeah. 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 So I see that board behind you there with
The big board, yeah. Here's the bad news. There are two of them.
oh.
So one, one board contains all the work I'm doing for websites and now magazine article I'm writing and some video reviews I'm going to be doing on YouTube soon for Make Weird Music. and the other board documents where I'm going in my book on Bernie Worrell. So yeah, busy, very,
Wonderful.
very
So
busy. I'll say a friend of mine made fun of me because he looked at the board and said, "Let me see if I got this straight. You retired so you can work harder." I said, yeah, more or less. But I love what I'm doing, so
yes,
I'll work with it.
yeah, yeah. It's great that you now have the time to do what you love, and
It is wonderful.
you can live your passion, and
Right, right. Passion is a word that was thrown at me a lot, especially
yeah.
before I retired. Well, now you can pursue your passion. Well, we know what you're passionate about. Or my sergeant called himself being funny one day. It's like, why can't you write your police reports the way you write your music articles? I said, well, I said, because policing is dumb. It's boring. I'm not interested in it. So yeah, I'm not a religious man, but I have no problem saying that I'm blessed and I'm fortunate to be in this position because I know how rough it is out there. And I know how people are struggling, and I don't take that for granted. I try to support small businesses, restaurants, and whatnot wherever I can. Donate to this, that, or the other thing. I get it. Band Camp Fridays, I try to get in there and
Yeah.
find some artist somewhere where I can throw some support. But it's just nice. It is nice to be able to roll out of bed and say, okay, well, what am I working on today? Knowing that doesn't involve a robbery or a homicide or anything like that. It's like, okay, well, I need to get that Stickman review written. Let me go ahead and get that done. That's a good place to be.
It kind of makes me happy and to hear that you spent a quarter century.
Yeah. When you put it that way, yeah.
doing something that you just call dumb, right? And you're and
dumb,
but you're
dumb, but they're
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But
you're still you're healthy now. You're inspired. You're motivated. You love what you're doing, right?
right.
And I think that's like it couldn't have gone any better if you look at it that way.
Oh, I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that at all. I mean, I'm in what I call the dream condo in Chicago. Even if it is cold outside, I'm so very happy to be here because one of my biggest issues was travel. I had to move my work days around and schedule days off where they didn't exist so I could get up here to see Steven Wilson or see, Jean-Luc Ponty or whoever I was coming up here to see. And just the expense of the train rides and the hotels and the meals and the concert tickets. And now I've taken the overwhelming majority of that off the board. So if there's a gig at Reggie's, I can just hop a couple of buses and go around the corner and I'm there. And I'm really, really happy about that. Eventually things are going to open up here and I'll be able to get to 4, 5, 6 gigs a week. And I'm really looking forward to that because that's just that much more stuff I can write about.
Yes. Yeah. Incredible. Yeah. And I really hope to get back to Chicago as well and play Reggie's and meet you.
Yeah, I don't live far away. You can come to my place and hang out. We'll play some records.
Fantastic. Okay, my friend. It was a wonderful conversation. I hope you felt comfortable talking about the side of you that you've left behind.
Oh, no trouble, no trouble. We didn't give away any state secrets or anything. We'll be okay.
Yeah.
And rare is the day I have trouble talking. So that's we'll be fine.
No, this was a great introduction for me, and it's as you said, it's a very it's sort of like a very, very deep thing.
Oh yeah.
And
when I write that book, you'll you'll understand a little bit more.
Yes, I would really love to read that. Do you know when?
That's a good question. I have a lot on my plate right now, and I'd like to take at least another year to get more objective about it.
Yeah.
Right now, it's still a little emotional. I can tell you the book is called Lifting the Veil. And I haven't come up with my subtitle officially yet, but it's not an expose. It's not a gotcha piece. It's just giving people like you a chance to look behind the curtain and see how things really work. Why do we go to calls the way we go to calls? Why are things dispatched this way? Why do we handle things like that? I want more people to look at what I'm doing and say, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." Yeah, and mistakes will be made, in the
Yeah.
course of doing these kind of things, and people need to understand. And I'm not going to go off too far on this because obviously we're towards the end, but people need to understand that a trial is a sales job. Okay, it's not necessarily a question of race or what have you, or more importantly, it's not a question of what you believe. Okay, you cannot prosecute a case based on what you believe. You got
Mhm.
to be able to prosecute a case based on what you can prove,
Yeah.
and it's a huge difference. And I
Mhm.
explained that to a couple of friends of mine who were upset over the George Floyd thing because they thought the charge given the policeman wasn't high enough. And I said, no, they're doing it perfectly because they know they've got that in their back pocket. They've read the state law and they know this qualifies, and they can continue their investigation. And if they can upgrade it, they can upgrade it. But if not, they know they have this. So they're not overreaching, which may lead to an acquittal, as opposed to
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
know he's guilty of this. I got him,
Yeah.
on this. So yeah, more people need to understand how that kind of thing works.
So it sounds to me as if you already have an idea of what the table of contents, or like
Yeah, yeah,
the structure will be
right.
of the
I can see
book.
it in my head. I've got people I want to interview, all that
Mhm.
other kind of stuff. It's all kind of whirling around up there, but I just need a little more time to step away from it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
To be a little less emotional about it, and then I can go forward from there.
yeah. Wonderful. Okay, my friend. So I know we could talk for many more hours, but just leave it. Let's leave it at that.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I
Yes.
appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, wonderful. And I'm actually, it's great to hear that you will be doing video reviews, like, or no, yeah, music reviews
Oh
for
yeah,
Make
you're
Weird
right. Video
Music.
reviews. I will be
Yeah.
doing 60-second video reviews in addition to the stuff I'm writing.
Oh, that's fantastic. So we will be seeing more of you, which
Well,
is
sadly, yes, you will be.
sadly, no. How many are you planning on doing per week, or?
Well, I'm going to be working with a website called Make Weird Music,
Yeah.
Anthony Garone's page.
Hmm.
And we're going to do what we call the Cedric Song 60-second review. In a perfect world, I am going to review 3 records a week. I'm going to record
Hmm.
myself reviewing 3 records a week. We'll probably post at least 2 of them, and
Hmm.
then maybe like a weekend review type thing. So I have a list, part of this big board over here. I have a list of albums I'm going through,
Hmm.
and sky's the limit. So I don't have an absolute number. I'm also going to do a week or two of DJing on an internet radio station called Planet Radio,
Hmm.
where I'm going to put together some themes and be a DJ. It's possible Stickman might sneak in there somewhere. It's just or definitely your stuff because I really want to. One of the many categories I want to cover is just a different kind of progressive instruments like
Yeah.
touch guitars, sticks, that kind of thing. So people can understand what those things are and what they do. So yeah, we'll talk about
Okay.
that
Yes.
more down
So
the
so
road.
so, so you're right. You have a lot on your plate. So
Yes, yeah, yes, I do.
so all the best, my friend,
I appreciate
for
it. Thank you
now,
very much.
and I'll talk to you on Facebook.
Sounds good. Take care.
Thank you for now. Yeah.
Bye now.
Yeah. Bye. Bye, Cedric. Bye.